Hello, welcome back to the Tip of the Tongue Business Series 2021. This is our third year now of delivering the series. For those of you that joined us previously in 2019 in the CBD, and for those of you that have joined us 2020 online, I just would like to say welcome back. We're really excited to be here again, and thank you to those of you who actually took the time to reach out and say what a valuable resource you found this last year. So very excited to be bringing you the up-to-date information that you need as small business owners to be making the right decisions now moving forward. Delighted today to be chatting with Shane Dean from Dye & Co. I know, Shane, for a lot of small businesses this year, it's going to be about recovery, restructuring, possibly insolvency, possibly deciding whether they want to recover or whether they want to restructure to begin again. And that really plays to all the skill sets that Dye & Co have to offer. So I noticed there's a lot of information for small businesses out there right now. I just really wanted to get a handle on what are the ways that people need to be making the decision right now. How do you choose what's the right pathway for you right now as a small business?
Yeah, awesome. No, great questions too, and thanks for having us back, Sian. It's always great to chat. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk around small business at the moment, and a lot of that is on the back of the fact that the government has introduced a whole raft of reforms quite hastily towards the end of last year to assist businesses, especially small businesses, going forward, and I'll touch on those shortly. But you talked about, how do they make the decision? What's the path that's right for them? Probably the best thing for small businesses to do in the first step is to get their accounts up to date, know exactly what the financial situation is. We do see quite a number of small businesses that may not necessarily have all their details in front of them in respect of their financial position. So it becomes very difficult to make those decisions unless your account's up to date. And quite often we hear the words, look, I can't afford to bring them up to date. The reality is you can't afford not to bring them up to date, because if you're going to make some financial decisions based on incorrect data, you might get some incorrect advice and end up in a situation that's heaps worse than you otherwise needed to be. That sort of dovetails into the being honest with yourself about the path, being honest with the financial position that you're currently in, and understanding the full breadth of that. That might be, what's your focus? Because some people come in and they say their focus is we want to save a house, we want to save the business, and the reality is they might not even be in that much strife. For others, they are in that much strife. But the only way we can know that and give you the best advice is to, one, you be honest with yourself so that we're not telling you anything that's going to be super scary, because you've already got a bit of a feeling or an understanding, and you'll have a much better understanding of that by having your accounts up to date. As part of that altogether is, we hear a lot of people there going, oh, but it doesn't matter for me anyway because I'm already stuffed, so I'll just keep going. How much worse could it get? The answer is a lot, depending on what you own personally. If you're trading a small business company and you continue to trade, you open yourself up to insolvent trading and things like that, which I'll talk about when get to the laws and stuff like that. I'll talk about that a bit more. But those things need to be in place so that you can choose what the right path for you is. And the best thing to do would be to go and get advice. It doesn't usually cost anything to go and have a chat to definitely our office. For a business to understand its options. Quite often your accountant will be on board with having a chat. People have mentors and other people in the business or business network such as your own that will be able to help them sort of get more and more financial information so that they can choose the right path that's for them. Because it might be that they need someone like us as registered liquidators to do a more formal insolvency process because they are in a financial crisis situation that needs a liquidator or a voluntary administrator, or it might be that you just need to negotiate out of it. And that takes you on to, well, there's just so much assistance that's available for people, and they should be making the most of it and not be too scared or too proud to have that conversation.
I think that's a really good point. I think for me, definitely, as this is not my field of expertise, how do I know what there is there to assist me? I saw your fantastic article today about the small business restructuring process, but I would imagine that's possibly one of several things out there that are available right now. Can you give us some more information, Shane, about how people can get access to that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously a great resource is our website, because we quite often have good blogs and things like that, and we usually link it back to official statements. So places like the Australian Securities and Investments Commission will have fact sheets. Australian Government Treasury also has a fact sheet at the moment. The Insolvency ARETA, which is the Australian Restructuring, Insolvency and Turnaround Association, which is our governing body for registered liquidators and the like. They put out a lot of good information around companies that are in financial distress. But it's also, goes broader than that. The ATO has information that helps businesses, not even ones that are in financial distress. They've got a great resource in regards to all sorts of access for small business. And then if you're talking about other assistance, because, and recently there's been, Victorian government website has been updated to really help a lot of small businesses, both navigate COVID-19, plus access some of the grants that are available to them. So they're sort of the main resources that are web-based. And then outside of that, some of the resources are probably people that are the stakeholders infected within the company. So if you've got bank or other lenders within the business, go and have a chat to them and say, look, we're currently doing a little bit tough. Can we reduce the repayments and push this out or whatever? Banks have been very helpful during the COVID pandemic. Now, if you've stuck your head in the sand, they're probably going to be less helpful. But if you're upfront with them, going to a proper payment plan or some other plan just to see you through a short period of time, they'll be amenable to that. And if you've got up-to-date accounts where you can show that this plan is going to work, again, they're going to help you through. And talk to the suppliers, your major suppliers, see if they'll help you through, and talk to the tax office. Because it might be that if you alleviate some of these immediate pressures, you don't actually need someone like ourselves to come in there and do a formal assistance. You can actually get that. But look, anyone wanting some advice, they can always speak to us, because people that we know, like yourselves, we deal with people that are, professional debt negotiators, professional ATO debt negotiators. We know a lot of the people within the banks and the lending environment, so we can make those introductions, and providing that's going to work. So that's one way. But you mentioned that small business reforms, where we've got effectively 2 new processes that are available to small businesses. Now, it's not small businesses as defined by other legislation, it's small business as defined by this new legislation. So you can have a small business restructuring process. The eligibility requirements are basically the same for that process, and also the new process, which is called a simplified liquidation. So if you're a small business with less than $1 million in debts, you can't pay all of your debts in full within the next 12 months, then you can access the small business recovery, providing your tax obligations have all been met. So that doesn't mean you need to have paid your tax or your outstanding tax. It just means you need to have complied by lodging all your BASs, tax returns and things like that. So anything that was outstanding needs to be up to date. Your employee entitlements need to be up to date. So that's wages and super. It doesn't include things like accruals and that would be ongoing and payable in the future. So provided all those things are up to date, you're under $1 million in total debts, then you can apply to be part of this small business restructuring process. And that effectively is a 35-day period where directors continue to stay in control of their own company. So unlike all the other external administration processes, the director stays in control, continues to trade the company, puts together a plan with the assistance of a small business restructuring practitioner, which would be like a registered liquidator, someone like ourselves. And that plan says to the creditors, we're going to pay you X dollars, whether that's 100 cents or 50 cents or whatever, over time, or it could be a lump sum from external sources or whatever. However that plan looks, and then creditors have just got to vote on whether they accept it or not. And if they do, well, then it binds all creditors and the company survives into the future. And that's what the law is designed to do, is to make it a more streamlined process to enable the companies to survive, which means that there's less fallout from loss of jobs, impact on suppliers and things like that. And the simplified liquidation process, very similar hurdle requirements, but it is a liquidation process. So it's an end of life or an end of company's life process, which just means that there's less requirements around our reporting to ASIC, and there's less clawbacks available to a liquidator. And it just is a bit of a cheaper process than the current liquidation environment.
And do you feel that will be a one-off process, Shane, or do you think help like that will be ongoing? What is there stuff that you think will be coming in the future?
So in terms of, in the future, the legislation and the law changes are probably going to remain mostly the same at the moment until we get some proper reform. And that's a whole 3-hour different topic, Sean, so we won't...
Another day.
There's some stuff around the personal space is like 1-year bankruptcy is back in favour, so that's being looked at the moment as, so people that do go bankrupt will only be bankrupt for 1 year. So what that means is people can go and then be a director of a company again after 1 year. No restrictions on going to apply for finance and things like that. The reality is most finance forms have the box that says, have you been a bankrupt in the last 5 years? You tick the form. They'll also have an impaired credit check. So, so it's still going to impair them, but at least then that they can get back on with their lives after 1 year. Most of the other laws within that bankruptcy environment will stay with the old 3-year process. But that's an acknowledgement of the fact that COVID's impacted people that wouldn't normally have been impacted. And it's been floated around before. It used to be law, it then got removed, it's back in favour. So we'll see what that's going to bring. But what else is coming? Look, I can see it's going to be a really tough year for businesses in general, and especially small businesses. At the moment, obviously, JobKeeper has been a godsend for a lot of businesses and enabled them to continue through where perhaps they wouldn't have otherwise been able to survive, which is fantastic. That ends at the end of March. And just like any perfect storm, the landlord moratorium period is ending at the same time. The banks' repayment moratoriums is now ending, and banks are starting to look for repayments. And the ATO still seem to be fairly sort of subdued in their recovery activity, but are ramping it up more in the superannuation guarantee charge space. So what I can see is there's going to be a lot of pressure coming back onto companies towards that end of March, April period. And we're probably going to start with just this little snowball. But as it starts to gather momentum down the hill, it's going to turn into a larger snowball. But hopefully the economic recovery, hopefully there is one that comes with it, which will enable that there be increased trade, and hopefully these businesses will be able to navigate their way through what's going to be some pretty tough times. But if they, anyone that's having trouble or isn't sure, by all means, they can have a chat and we can at least tell them their options. So it's at least known to them, and therefore if it's known to them, then it's less scary than, perhaps what they conceive some of these options to be.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it's a difficult time out there for businesses right now, and it is about finding the right place to go to get the information they require. Shane, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Look, they can jump on our website, is www.dyeco, which is dyeco.com.au. That has all of our contacts. It has, if you go to our people section, it has my details plus our other 4 registered liquidators and 2 bankruptcy trustees that are part of our office. Has our LinkedIn profiles, has our direct emails, and all our contact details are there. So that's probably the best way. Or if they're drifting around LinkedIn or something like that, they'll probably see me under your stuff, and vice versa. So I'm available on there as well.
Awesome. Shane, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a really busy time for you with supporting small businesses right now, but your information is always so good and so on point and so time relevant. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Thank you.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.